Sahanau Bhavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Verse 46, if you have the book, otherwise somewhere around 156. Dehoyam manna bhavanonnamayastu koshaha.
Dehoyam manna bhavanonnamayastu koshaha.
Did that come out nicely?
No.
Okay. Dehoyam manna bhavanonnamayastu koshaha.
Dehoyam manna bhavanonnamayastu koshaha.
Chanena jivati vinashyati tadvihinaha.
Chanena jivati vinashyati tadvihinaha.
Tvakcharma mamsa
Tvakcharma mamsa
Rudhirasti purisha rashihi.
Rudhirasti purisha rashihi.
Nayam swayam bhavitumarhati
Bhavitumarhati
nitya shuddhaha.
nitya shuddhaha.
Bhavitumarhati nitya shuddhaha.
Bhavitumarhati nitya shuddhaha.
Now the Jains, the Jain people, Jain religion, they have a word called arhat, the deserving one, you know. It means deserving. So arhati means deserves. Na arhati, does not deserve. What? The body does not deserve to be called I, Atma. Why? Because it was bad. It did not behave itself. No, because it is always changing. Yeah. And it is a bunch from the Vedic standpoint. From the objective standpoint, why just the Vedic standpoint? The objectively speaking, what is this body? You know, you say I, and we touch the body right here in the center. Me, I. But when you say I, what you are touching is the body, right? And this body is just a bunch of all kinds of things. It's an assemblage of dermis, epidermis, you know. The knowledge of the body is skin deep. And so we have the outer skin and then the inner skin. Underneath that are tissues and veins and arteries, the blood. And then the musculature. You know, they have all these shows now where they have these, the people who have donated their body to science, they take away the skin and, you know, embalm the body, and they show the various muscles in various poses. It's very interesting. I haven't seen it, only the pictures, but it's a traveling art. They do that. Real bodies, cadavers. So it's muscle. When you see that, immediately you have jnanam, knowledge. Of blood, bones, tissues, organs, and what not, you know, marrow. And then not only that, and how did this assemblage come to being? If you ask, we have to go back to the 5 elements. Either you keep going parents, grandparents, great-great-grandparents, 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 great-great-grandparents until you reach monkey. Or, or better yet, directly trace the body to the 5 elements. Because there is space in the body, there is space outside, there is, water in the body, there is water outside. So this body is a product of the 5 elements. And this product of the 5 elements is an assemblage of all these things. And then what caused the 5 elements to come into the shape of this body? We said 2 things. One is one's own karma, correct? Mm-hmm. Because there is some karma to finish, or there is leftover karma from last life. Karma is nothing but desire, really. Mm-hmm. All the desires, they bring forth this body. And why do they bring forth this body? They bring forth this body because the desires have an agenda. And the only agenda of the desire is feed me. Feed me, fulfill me. Yes. Because a desire cannot remain a desire, even if it desires to do so. The desire creates a pressure for fulfillment, so much so that the body, what does the body? It brings forth the body to finish that desire. And not only so there is one side there is desire, and the other side there are results of actions from previous desires. This is very exciting, interesting. Not exciting, interesting. And what is the other part? The other part is that, so one is the desire, leftover desire brings forth the body. And the other reason for the body to come is leftover results of action from where? Acting upon desires in previous lives. Bring forth a body. So the desire and action together conspire to bring forth this body. Yes, so 5 elements is the raw material for the body, the magic, for the body. And the karma, the action, or rather here when I say karma, it's result of action, karma phala, is the cause of birth. Because that desire has not been reconciled with, and really there is only one desire. What is that desire? I have to be free, I want to be free. If I don't know that, then that desire gets like the river, goes into all these tributaries and then dries up, forgetting that it has to go to its source. It has to go back to the ocean. It forgets that, and so almost like that, the force of that desire, which is really moksha, freedom from desiring, that is the only desire, freedom from seeking. If I don't know that, then what happens is that one desire gets channeled and it gets dammed up in certain places, it gets channeled into various tributaries, and then what happens? It goes off in tangents. One goes here, one goes there. And if you trace the Ganga, this is what happens. You cannot trace the river's source. There is a saying like that. Don't trace the source of the river. Why? Because we'll be here forever. Because you won't get the answer. And people do that. People try to trace the source of the Ganga. So they first go to Haridwar, there is Ganga flowing. Then they go to Rishikesh. Then they go to all these places where the river, splits into tributaries or rivulets, or actually Ganga doesn't become a rivulet, it's huge. So it splits into double rivers. And then the place where the 2 splits meet, or where the splits happen, is called, either way, however you look at it, is called Prayaga. That place where the 2 splits are meeting is called Prayaga. And so you go to the first level of the Prayaga, where the confluence, that's the word, the confluence of the 2 streams. And then you see the green colored Alakananda, which is another name for Ganga in the form. And then you see the grey colored Bhagirathi. Alakananda is coming very beautifully, softly. She is dark green in color. Bhagirathi is in a hurry. and she's almost like that, she's got that oceanic roar, and they meet in a place called Devaprayag. Then you say, okay, that is not the source of the Ganga, I have to go higher, and people do. I have done this. So then, first one is called Devaprayag, means that's the name of the town, the confluence, the first confluence. Then you go to the next confluence, Karnaprayag, and there also the same thing happens. Two other, Mandakini and Bhagirathi meet there. Mandakini is another name of another, part of the Ganga flowing, and then you keep going, then you reach Gangotri, which is supposed to be the source of the Ganga, supposedly, but it's not. And a lot of people just do a big namaskar to Mother Ganga and say, okay, we have seen your source, thank you very much. Others may still go to another place a little higher, and not for the faint of heart traveler, because riding on donkeys and other things are involved. And you can go to a place called Gomukh, and then you can keep going, That's why it's called Gomukh. So you keep going and going, and each one says, this is the source of the Ganga, this is the source of the Ganga, and all of them are wrong. Because you'll end up in the glacier, correct? Really? Yeah, and again, which part of the glacier is she flowing from? One doesn't know. So too, if you start looking for the source of this, the true desire, that is like the seeking the source of the Ganga. I mean, really, if it is invisible to oneself because of ignorance, this is what happens. One gets, tributaries gets channeled into various pursuits that are dead-end pursuits. So each, instead of having the force of the gushing flow towards the ocean of knowledge, what happens is that this river becomes a seeking river and keeps splitting into various things. And seeks, and then it becomes a dead-end pursuit, because that's not what I really wanted. So these are the two reasons for the cause of for birth. One is that I have that my ignorance of my own nature, which is an ignorance of what is it that I'm really seeking, that is the cause of birth. Second is all the karmas from the past, the results of karma from the past, what has happened to them, they are not resolved. Because I have not woken up from this nightmare, I am the doer. So they keep, they keep bringing forth all these fruits which need to be eaten in the next life. And we cannot complain they are rotten fruit, why should I have to eat them? They have to be eaten. This is the law, it's a model. And then the other reason for the birth is all those results of actions go along with the force of the flow of the desires, which are because I don't know what I'm really seeking. You understand? Yeah. So then there is a clamoring on part of the subtle body. We studied about the subtle body here, right? Mm-hmm. And there is a clamoring on part of the subtle body to want a new physical body. So the subtle body, it survives death, we heard that. And then it consists of the potential for action, the potential for sensory perception, it consists of all the desires, it consists of ignorance primarily, which is the fuel that propels the survival of the subtle body after the gross body falls off in the last life. And so it clamors for a new body. And how does this happen? I mean, the Upanishad says that the jivas, the individuals who are waiting to be incarnated, somehow are there, they come along with the raindrops. And so in Eugene there must be a lot of jivas waiting to be incarnated. So jivas means individuals, not just human beings, any life form, including trees, including sea anemones and all kinds of things, barnacles, things that we don't even consider alive, corals, etc. Everything is a jiva. And so these jivas wait with the raindrops, and they come riding on the raindrops and they fertilize the earth. and the okra and the eggplant and the capsicums and the green chilies and the carrot and the cabbage, everything that grows there. And they quickly get into the food. And that food is eaten by the parents. And that becomes the raw material for the body. So therefore we say the body is born of food. 5 elements, no doubt, but really, ultimately it's the earth, the grossest of the 5 elements, and out of the earth is born the food, and that food is eaten, ingested by the prospective parents, and then this new baby comes along. And interestingly enough, even this, I read one book somebody gave me a long time ago, Tibetan dying book.
Book of the Dead.
Huh?
Book of the Dead.
Book of the Dead, yes. It's not the dying book. It's the dead book. Okay. So, Tibetan Book of the Dead. Book of the dying and the dead. Dead and dying. I think there is the word dying there. Yes, yeah. So, I'm not dying to use that word. It happens to be, it happens to be there. So, and then it talks about the process of death. And it's very interesting. It's a similar thing. And here the jivas come down in the form of a downpour. And in the Tibetan version of the same explanation, the jivas are hiding in the bedrooms of newly married couples. This is what it says. Or maybe they will have me now, So they are wanting to get a life form. So they quickly identify the newly married prospective parents who might be, Yeah. They're not going to go for somebody who's been married for 50 years. They're not interested in that, So this is a similar kind of a thing. So anyhow, the body is born. I is not born. Remember, the I was already part of that subtle package, and in fact the I is not the part of the subtle body. It is that which allows the subtle body to flow from birth to birth, from that to survive birth, that which propels the ejection of the subtle body from that separation of the subtle from the gross is because of that presence of that single existence. So the subtle body exists because the I exists. If the I wasn't there, there would be no gross body, subtle body, nothing at all. So subtle body is nothing but Atma. Atma is not the subtle body. And this goes all the way, this partial negation has to be done. Because if we do a total negation, then we keep negating everything. Then we keep negating the negation also. But that is not useful because it leads to a certain dissociative tendencies. And so here we are not looking to dissociate, we are looking to integrate, embrace, which is an entirely different thing. So therefore what? So the integration happens by the negation of what is not correct. That everything, is the self, because there is no thing without the existence of the self. But the self, in order for it to be limitless, has to be free of being any one thing. This we have to understand. So then when we come to interrogate the truth of this body, then the main part to do, what is there for us to do is to falsify the body. And the falsification of the body is very easy, really. Because everybody knows I'm not this body. No matter what culture, what tradition, what religion one may have grown up in, one knows I am not this body. It's not hard because one has seen people pass and one sees that the body is left behind. Of course, in the Western tradition, they give it to the who are they? The makeup artists, embalmers. Yes, embalmers, and morticians. I knew one mortician. I met one person, and I said, "What is it that you do? What is this whole thing about?" I just was curious, and they said, He said, "I'm very stressed." I said, why? He said, because they want me to do the impossible. I said, what do they want you to do? He says, while living, the person was like a zombie for the last 10 years of their life, you know. And then after death, they want the 98-year-old great-grandma to look more alive than when she was alive. You see? Just for that small portion, the viewing. That's what it's called in the casket. Yeah, you go and look. And it should be spick and span, and she should look as though she's just got dressed to go on a little outing. You know? And how did she live? The whole 10 years before her death, she was in a vegetative state. You see, so this is the kind of the thing, and this already shows that there is a certain kind of an interface of the ignorance overlaying this whole body business, because the body is not I, is not understood. It's not completely understood, partially understood, because we say dear departed, because we know that they are not right there. Okay, but then people get really sentimental about the mode of disposal, for example. You know, where to bury and how to do this, and then, you know, who should have the remains. All these things become very charged decisions. So both those things are there. There is a certain clarity about the body not being I, and there is also a lot of confusion about the body not being I. And so therefore, the Vivekachudamani comes as a happy intervention and really very happily informs us that what you think is you is just a heap of flesh, bones with a little bit of blood and organs thrown in. And every day you are putting lotion on it. Don't stop putting lotion. I'm just saying overly what we are trying to tend every day should be seen as a means as a dwelling place for that which is imperishable, correct? Rather than transferring the imperishability onto this thing that is eminently perishable. You see what I'm saying? So if I see this as a dwelling place for the imperishable, something wonderful happens. That means what? I am keeping the dwelling place in good shape. You know, I take a walk, you have your, what are those things called? Everybody is eating them these days. Antioxidants, you keep taking, half the plate is full of, berries, and all kinds of things. You know, why? Because they are very, very good for you, we have heard. So, and then the other half is all the other pills and potions, fine. Take all of them. Keep the body in fit shape for what? To be able to gain this freedom. That is what the body is, a vehicle for experience. That's all we heard it. We heard it earlier. Bhoga ayatanam. Earlier, this very text has told us that. Bhoga ayatanam. It's a vehicle for experience. Bhoga sadhanam. It's just a vehicle. It's a dwelling place for the I and a vehicle to exhaust the karmas. So if something happens to the body, this is an alternative response that I am suggesting instead of the regular reaction, which is generally to freak out, correct? What is happening? So an alternative response suggested by this verse is that, okay, one more karma has left. And you feel good also. So if this body was indeed made to experience karma, and then suddenly there is a catch in the back, and the catch doesn't say, I'm coming, that is the catch, okay? So it just comes and it catches. So when it catches, there are two possible responses. Actually, one is a reaction, which is a subjective reaction, and the other is an objective response. The subjective reaction is, oh my God, what is happening? The other day nothing happened. Why it happened now? Why me? Why now? That is a subjective reaction. And the objective response is what? If this body is a heap of blood, bones, flesh and all kinds of things, waiting to go off really, and if it is indeed that, and if it is a place where karma gets exhausted, then if supposing there were, I'm just giving a finite number, at least for this body, let's say there were 50 karmas. There's a lot more than that, but I'm trying to be optimistic. So let's say there were 50 pieces of karma for what? For this body to exhaust, for a certain body to exhaust in the lifetime, and suddenly backache comes. That means what? One less karma is there to go through. Isn't that wonderful? Say yes.
Yes.
Yeah. This is the objective way that this verse will have us look at this particular issue. It's not in terms of why all these things are happening to me, but oh look, you can put a tick mark. You make a list of chores. Yeah. And then you say, okay, this one's gone now. Yeah. You make a list of things to do, reminders, and then you say, okay, this one is ticked. Let's say in the reminder list you have put clean house, do laundry, things which people generally don't like to do. And supposing you have finished cleaning house, that wonderful sense of accomplishment, yes, tick, check. And then laundry, yes, from 5 weeks ago I have finally finished, check. And there is an almost exhilaration, correct? Feeling of exhilaration. Similarly, when the body goes through one karma, just say, aha, one more, less thing to go to check, been there, done that, been there again and done that. Oh, you were to come 3 times, I did not know. Okay, check, check, check. So this is the objective way to look at it. And thereby what happens is that the I is, as it were, protected. As the Bhagavad Gita says, like a small light, if you want to protect from the wind, you hold it like this, correct? A little tea light, if you're taking it outside and you don't want it to get blown away by the wind, blown off, you hold it like this. Nivatastha deepaha, a light which is protected from the wind. Similarly, that awareness, that inner space between the body and the I, first has to be recognized, number one. Number two, then you have to increase the mileage between the I and that the body. So you have to put a few miles between them, Yeah. You have to put a few miles, means that the space should grow along with my spiritual growth. In fact, that itself is spiritual growth. Is having a space between the I and the body. Why? Why do I need to make sure that there is space? Because otherwise they get conflated. They get confused. I think of, I am as good as this body. So the body is growing old. What do I say? I grow old. I grow old. This is from T.S. Eliot. I shall wear the bottoms of my trousers rolled. The love song of J. Alfred Prufrock. Very interesting poem. So, I grow old means what? I is not subject to growing old. It neither grows nor does it groan. Okay? No groaning, no growing. And because it is free of growth, it is also free of demise, it is also free of birth. And it is just located means, everything is located in the I, as it were. But we can say that this I is blessing this body-mind-sense complex, is indwelling this body-mind-sense complex, without undergoing any change. So the changes that happen to the body do not happen to the I, do not touch the I. So this is what is that figurative, we saw in the last verse, separating the shoot of grass from the outer covering. Munja, grass, from the outer covering, one removes it, and so too this body, is seen as not the I. You know, body is I. I is not this body. You know, this is the teaching, and we are going to go now. You know, removing the stalk of the grass from the outer covering, slowly on all the levels wherever there is a conflation. And it requires a certain level of alertness. And this is what is being talked about. And that alertness with the body is a constant awareness that I am not the pot, I am not the, I am not this covering. What is this I? The I is like the space inside this pot. And for the pot space, to understand that I am space, it doesn't have to break the pot, correct? And come out. And neither does it have to go like this, because it wants to merge with space. Everything space, in fact, is the pot in space or is space in pot? That can become a Zen cone, So too, that inner space has to keep increasing. And when the inner space increases between the I and this body, you see, I don't say this I, correct? Yeah. It's very good to call it this body. Instead of saying I body, my body, start using the word this body. Idam pratyaya gocharaha. That which is an object of this cognition is always not I. That which is an object of I cognition, subject cognition, is I. That which is an object of object cognition, this cognition, is not I. You don't say this I, you just say I. So the this is actually, this and that when we say, that means that there is some, there is an entity whose presence is shining on all those objects and bringing them to light. So that is the separation, that is the space. And so the verse talks about the differences between why the body does not deserve to be called Atma, the I, because it is born of food, it is destroyed also by food. First a few years, first about 30-40 years, you eat the food, correct? So, 3 times a day, maybe 5 times a day. Why? Because the doctor said have small, frequent meals. Coming back from the doctor's office, I forgot to write down small. So what did I do? Frequent meals. So maybe 5 times a day, etc. And after a while, the food which has been, patiently being the object of consumption, suddenly rebels. And then says, I am going to have the final word. You think you're going to eat me? And you think you've been eating me? No, I eat you now. And so saying, it starts to act upon the body. And very soon, the person says, I can't eat wheat, I can't eat sugar, I can eat everything except oil, and I can eat only little bits. I can't eat salt because it increases the blood pressure. I can't eat, I can't drink this, I can't have that, I'm allergic to milk. So these allergies is the revenge of the food, really. Yeah. It's the revenge of time, which is wreaking havoc on this body. So therefore, what you can eat becomes less and less and less and less and less. And then when you eat those contraband things, because one cannot stay away from them. Yeah. Because everything that one likes has too many calories. So one has to, where to draw the line. If one is allergic to everything, one has to keep living. So something one keeps eating. And then it wreaks havoc on the body, correct? So first you eat the food. and then the food starts to eat you. And then that same food, which is the paradox, that same food which earlier contributed towards the growth of this body, what does it do now? It becomes a reason for it to be taken out. Yeah. Taken out in a casket. Yeah. Why? Because this is how the law of karma works. So the body is disintegrating as we speak. Every minute one is aging. Every minute, something is not, something that was working before is not functioning. And so it is born of food, and finally it is consumed by food. And then it itself becomes food for all other maggots and, all these bacteria which consume upon the body after it has, it has died. And so therefore after the life force has gone from it. And so therefore what? It's very funny relationship of the body with food. And therefore the Atma doesn't need anything to keep it going, correct? Body eats food. What does Atma have? Energy drink. Maybe somebody will come out with an energy drink called Atma. So, it doesn't have an energy drink. Please drink something, you will be tired, you have been doing so much, you are keeping so many bodies alive. Atma is not dependent on anything to be itself. So it doesn't drink, it doesn't, need any food. So it is not subject to destruction like the body is subject to destruction. So this body cannot be called I, because the I is the temporary indweller of this body-mind-sense complex, and unaffected by the body-mind-sense complex it dwells, whereas the body is subject to total destruction. This is what we saw yesterday. And then furthermore, a few more other logic, few other pieces of logic is given here in the next verse. Purvam janeradhimritepi nayamasti. Purvam janeradhimritepi nayamasti. Jata kshana kshana.
Jata kshana kshana.
Guno niyata svabhavaha.
Guno niyata svabhavaha.
Naiko jadascha ghatavat.
Naiko jadascha ghatavat.
Paridrishyamanaha.
Paridrishyamanaha.
Svatma katham bhavati.
Svatma katham bhavati.
Bhava vikara veta.
Bhava vikara veta.
Yeah. Purvam janehe. Janehe purvam. Before birth. Where was this body? Not there. Correct? Adhimritehe. After death. Where was this body? Nada. Not there. Okay? Yeah. And then not only does it have this finite swabhava. Swabhava means nature. Not only is it so finite that before birth, no body. Correct? After birth, no body. And then, and not only that, while being alive, as soon as it's born, jataha, kshana kshana, every second, what happens? Kshana kshana, gunaha aniyata svabhavaha. Aniyata svabhavaha means the nature is non-ascertainable. Yeah. And you see this in a newborn baby. Everybody is cooing over this infant. And then the grandparent, the proud grandmother says, the baby looks like me. And the grandfather says, no, 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 it looks like me. And then few days later, then again they look at the baby. The father says it looks like me. The mother says, no, it looks like me. You see how many changes the face of the baby goes through. You cannot make a decision who it has taken after. And that is what is called jata kshana kshana gunaha. It keeps gaining attributes. Aniyata swabhavaha. You cannot say this body is like this, because by the time you finished saying that, it has already undergone some change. You cannot categorically say. And this is what in the world of mithya, everything is like this. You cannot categorically say this body is ... fill in the blank. And as soon as you say fill in the blank, that particular thing has gone. So, jata kshana kshana gunaha aniyata swabhavaha. So the attributes, it keeps gaining new attributes, and then from birth, and every minute it changes, aniyata swabhavaha, of an uncertain nature. You cannot say that this is the nature of the body. And then further, na ekaha. This body is, what is happened to this body? It has eyes, it has nose, hands, legs, feet, it has parts. Yeah, like a car. It has parts. Yeah. That's why the body also has karma. See? So, it has parts. And anything that is, so it looks like it is put together, correct? So this body is put together. Anything that is put together is what? Subject to falling apart. Yeah. So if it has parts, the parts will stop functioning. Yeah. Liver failure. Then you get on the list for some transplant nowadays. Before it was just, what is that? Namaha, that was it. And now kidney failure, you can, go on artificial kidneys called dialysis, or you can get on the transplant. This failure, that organ failure, multiple organ failure. And so many things, the parts keep going, Yeah. And by the time one is after middle age, none of the originals are there. You can have hair without having hair. You can have teeth without having teeth. You can have knees without having knees. Yeah, you can have hips without having hips. Everything is replacement surgery. Nowadays all this is there. And if you cannot afford it in America, don't worry. There is such a thing called medical tourism. Go to India. And then they will do it for a fraction of the fee, and then you can look at some temples and Taj Mahal and come back. Yeah. So none of the parts are that's what it means to have parts. The knee wears out, Yeah, it's tired of you, it's weary of you because you make it do things that it's not supposed to do. Yeah. Knee wears out, ankle wears out. And then, everything. You can have all kinds of things because the original, whatever you can replace, is already replaced by the time you are 80. Yeah. Everything is already replaced. So then this shows what? Na ekaha. Whereas the Atma, does it have parts? So if it has parts, the parts will go, correct? Atma has how many parts? Impart, no parts, it is the whole. So if it has no parts, none of the parts can stop functioning. That is the idea. Na ekaha. And then that's another thing. Then jadascha. Jadaha means this body is inert. Inert means what? Dead, really. Like a block of wood. Block or blockhead, both are inert. Body is inert. And the body is alive because of the presence of the Atma. That's what makes the body alive. And that's what departs upon the death of the body. And and what is the difference between Jiva and Atma? Jiva is Atma, Atma is not Jiva. Jiva means the individual suffering from disconnection and separation. Yeah. Atma means that I, free of all disconnection, the one who knows, we say Atma. If you don't know, Jiva. Same thing. The one that has individuated itself from everybody and everything else because of ignorance, that is what is the Jiva. And so here what? Here very beautiful. So this is na ekaha. It is not only full of parts, it's partite, but it is also what? Jadascha. This body is not alive by itself. It is dependent first on the breath. And in fact, what is the breath of the breath? That is the Atma, Ishvara. So because of the presence of the Lord, this body becomes alive. And that I alone is Bhagavan. That is the ultimate truth. That is Ishvara. So for now, we have to understand that the body doesn't have anything it can do on its own. Even the temperature, that we find is that prana is that makes it the body alive is also a borrowed prana, because the prana departs, correct? And actually we say prana, the life force, but really it is Atma, because otherwise we'll say life force is what is keeping the body alive. But then what keeps the life force alive? Atma. And so then what happens? Jadascha. Jadascha means it is inert. Paridrishyamanaha. Paridrishyamanaha means it's an object, ghatavat. Like even the pot, it is an object of my perception. So I can see the body, correct? All I need is a mirroring surface. I can go in the front of the mirror and stand and look at the body. So can I see the Atma? If I look closely into the mirror, can I see the Atma? No. If I spray some magic spray and clean the mirror, can I see the Atma? No. Why? Seer is Atma. Seer is Atma. The one that sees is Atma. And the one that is already self-evident, which need not be objectified. First of all, you cannot objectify it. And then some people feel sad. Oh, everything I can objectify except the self. Oh Lord, what cruel joke is this? When are you going to come give darshan? Why have you deprived me of experiencing my own self? In fact, when the person is writing this sad song, they are experiencing the self. Really. Every experience is the self, because without the presence of the self, there cannot be any experience. In every experience, the truth of every experience is the self. The truth of the experiencer is the self. The truth of the object of experience is the I. So that I, which is free of being experienced as an object, is the truth of experiencer, experienced, and the process of experiencing. Who wants to experience the self now? So when I say I want to experience the self, there is a certain, disconnect that is happening. That means this was not understood. That in every self, in every experience, the self has to be there. No experience is understood as an experience without the presence of the I. The I is alone, makes the experience happen, allows the experiencer and experienced to as though split into two so that the experience can be enjoyed. All that is because of that one that does not split. So the split is as though, and that same I morphs into as though experiencer, as though experienced. And one says, this ice cream is so good. Ice cream also Atma, and I also Atma. And so therefore what? So therefore the I doesn't have to be objectified, because it is already evident to me. If I say, are you here? You're not going to say, let me think. You're not going to say that. What are you going to say? Yes, I'm here. How do you know that? Oh, somebody told me. That's not true. Even without telling you know that. You know I am. I am. And that which doesn't stop saying I am, that is that Atma, the witness of all experiences, without whom no experience can, take place, without whose presence. And then the body is a far cry from it. We are seeing the differences here. And the body is an object of my perception. Atma is the perceiver. Yeah. Atma is not an object of perception. And then finally what? Swatma katham bhavati. How can my Atma, one's own Atma is called Swatma. Katham bhavati. How does it become? How can this be? Bhava vikara veta. Bhava means changes. Bhava means all the changes. Bhava vikara, the different changes that happen to the body. Veta, the one who is the observer, the one who is the knower of the changes that the body, that the body is subject to. That is the I. Is the body aware that it is putting on weight? Does the body say, I am putting on weight? No. The body is happy. Whatever you feed, it will keep eating. Yeah. It will not bother. Yeah. In fact, the intelligence of the body is all to store for a rainy day. Yeah. So it keeps thinking that one day there may not be food, so I have to keep storing. In fact, it will eat more. And then if you start dieting, if you say, okay, from tomorrow I'm going to eat less, in fact, the intelligence of the body, as it were, which is really Atma only, is programmed to panic a little bit. Oh, they skipped one meal, they are skipping another meal also. I don't know what I'll get. So therefore, stop expending energy. Stop the metabolic process or slow it way down. Correct? So in fact, the body has the opposite intelligence than the I, which is indwelling in the body. So, completely opposite. So if I say I want to lose weight, body says, no, I want to store what I have. I want to keep it safe. And if you say I'm not going to eat, body says, better keep holding whatever, whenever food comes, better keep holding it, because we don't know when this person is not going to stop eating. So it's completely opposite. So the body doesn't have a problem with weight. The body doesn't have a problem with how it looks. Who has the complex? The I notion that is identified with the body mistakenly. That mistaken person, that ahankara has the complex. I don't look good, I need to lose weight, I need to be on some protein diet, and I need to be doing this, I need to, do that. All this is the gift of this complex person's head. Yeah. Who is the complex person? The one who lives in the body-mind sense, complex. Yeah. The one who is full of complexes is a complex person. So this complex person keeps saying, I need to lose weight, I'm not good looking, I need to put on more muscles. Muscles are not saying we need to increase our numbers. No, muscles are happily wasting away. Yeah. Whether you take calcium or not, they are happy doing what they were programmed to do. And so there is an overriding intelligence, and that overriding intelligence, when it attaches to the body, thinking of the body as I, these are the mistakes that happen. Yeah. So therefore here we are being reminded that actually the I is not the one who is associated with the body and trying to keep something that is supposed to fall, keeping it going more than is what is necessary. The I is actually the observer who is observing all the vikaras. Vikaras means modifications that the body is undergoing. So what are these modifications? Bhava vikaraha they are called. They are 6 in number. What are they? Birth. Jayate. Okay. Before growth, one more thing is there, it has to survive birth. Asti, jayate, is born. Asti, survives birth. Then what?
Growth.
Vardhate, grows. Then it blossoms, becomes capable of reproducing. Viparinamate. Till now it was a comedy, a nice story. Afterwards it's all downhill now. viparinamate, becomes capable of blossoming, is at its peak. And then what? Apakshiyate. Yeah, what does that mean? Starts to decline. And then finally what? Vinashyati. Dies. Is the body observing these changes? No. The body is not saying, I was born. The body is not saying, I am grown up now. The body is not saying, I am declining. No. Much less, I am dead. Oh, what happened? The body is inert. Who is observer of all these changes? I. And by a very simple logic, the observer of the changes has to be changeless in order to be able to observe the changes. Just like if you want to observe motion, this is physics. You have to be stationary, correct? Only the person who is stationary can observe and measure the motion, the velocity of something. But if you are also moving, then it is very difficult to, observe the motion of something else. And so here, the I is changeless. Is not fraught with birth or death or anything in between that we discussed, growth and all those things, other four. And so if the body is not fraught with all that, then what is, if the I is not fraught with all that, it is, free of all that. The body is fraught with the 6 modifications. You can even say 16, you can add a few more. Feels good one day, feels bad the next. Can add all kinds of things, relative, changes. But the changeless I alone can observe the changing body. The body cannot observe itself. So the body is what? Bhava vikaravan. Bhava vikara means these 6 modifications that we studied. The body is bhava vikaravan. It is the one who is subject to the 6 modification. And the Atma, by contrast, is what? Bhava vikara veta, the knower of the 6 modification. So you see there is now 2 entities. One who is subject to the 6 modification. What is that? Atma, right?
The body.
No, the body. And the second, the knower of the 6 modification, what is that? Aham, Atma. So you see now there is not one entity. Before it was mixed up like a noodle factory, where the I ends and where the body ends and the I begins was not clear. But through this process of sifting, like taking the stalk from the grass, covering the blade of grass, when we remove, then we see cognitively that the one who is observing the changes is free of all changes. So then the one who is observing the changes is the I, because the I is not subject to any changes. And the one who is subject to the changes is this inert body. So you see the Atma and the body, there is so many difference. Wow. The first one is this, the changeless Atma, and the one who is observing the changes, the one who is undergoing the changes, number 1. And Atma is Ekaha. Ekaha means what? One. Non-dually one. And then this impartite, whereas the body is what? Full of parts that fall apart. And then the Atma is a observer, and the body is like the pot, an object of observation. These are all beautiful logics. And then what? It was not there before birth, and it was not there after death. But the Atma was there before birth, and after the death of the body, Atma was continuing to be there. And as soon as it's born, it gains attributes and parts. Atma, since it's not born, does not gain attributes or parts. And then what? It has aniyata svabhava. Aniyata svabhava means uncertain nature. Suddenly it puts on weight, suddenly it grows, suddenly it decays. But Atma is of a certain nature. Yesterday it was Satchitananda. Today it is Satchitananda. And what is your guess for tomorrow? Satchitananda. Yeah. Certain nature, the one whose nature the only thing that can be ascertained is I. The nature of I is the only thing that can be ascertained and fixed. Everything else is always moving and changing. And then finally, yeah, I think we covered all the changes. Yes, aniyata svabhavaha. Yeah, jadaha. The body is inert, and then the atma is what? What is the opposite of inert? Sentient. Opposite of inert is not earth. Okay, yeah. So, like explicable and inexplicable, these are one of the inexplicable rules of the English language. Opposite of inert is not earth. Opposite of inert is sentient. So the atma is sentient, body is inert. So these are all the differences. Let us sum them up. Subject to birth and death, not subject to birth and death. I'm not going to say which is which, you know. First is body, second is atma. So subject to birth and death, not subject to birth and death. Number one. And the second one is that this was what? As soon as it's born, it gains parts and attributes. Since atma is not subject to birth or death, it has neither parts nor attributes. Then it is, the body has many parts that fall apart. Atma is impartite. The body is jada, inert. Atma is sentient. The body being inert is an object of the perception. Like even the pot, atma is not an object of perception. It is always the subject. And then finally what? Then it is not, if the body is the one afflicted with the sixfold modification. The atma is not only unafflicted, it's the observer of the sixfold modifications. So tell me, how can the body be atma? That is what the last line asks. Very, very nice logic, very beautiful set of verses. And tomorrow we will see how the same thing with regard to the life force, prana, we will do this particular selective negation, and we will see that. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.
Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.
Yeah, you can switch that off.